Hey, sinners, I'm Megan.
And I'm Lindsay, and this is Sinners Among Saints.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Hope your week was good. Ours was, I don't know about you. Mine was super busy. Like
Mine's always busy.
Yeah, ridiculously busy. So yeah. Anything to note?
Well, I can tell you about a super funny, dumb blonde moment that I had,
Yeah. Yes, please.
which is always entertaining with me. So it's getting kind of dusky in the morning still. So when I leave for work, it's like 7 o'clock or something.
Yeah.
And I'm backing out and pull forward on my street, and I'm driving, and all of a sudden I look in my passenger side mirror, and it's like a girl's face, and it looks like somebody's like hanging on to my mirror following me. So immediately I get like this holy shit reaction. My heart starts pounding. I'm like, what the hell? So I just keep double taking, because I can't stare at it because I'm driving. So I just keep like double taking. And eventually I realize, and this took me about a block of driving slowly, to realize that it was my own goddamn reflection because my kids had pushed in the mirror. And I was wearing a black shirt and it's dusky, right? So all you see, sorry if that was loud. All you see is like, it just looks like a floating head. And for some reason it didn't look like me. So I was like, but it literally gave me a freaking heart attack. So I had to stop and push the mirror out, and then everything was fine. There was no ghost girl, but it really freaked me out.
I'm impressed that you kept driving and didn't stop or wreck or anything.
Well, me too. At first I was like thinking I was just catching somebody on the sidewalk because it was like right when I pulled out of my driveway, so I was a little close to the sidewalk. And then I realized that it was following me, and I was like, what the hell?
So good.
So yeah, there's that. How about you?
Yeah, not much. I did almost hit the Amazon driver guy.
Oh no.
Pulling, because I came out of my house and he wasn't behind me. And then by the time I got in my car and started backing up, he was there, and it scared both of us. He's like, "Oh, you scared me." I'm like, "You scared me."
Was he like right behind you, or just like
right at the end of the driveway, and he was like out of the truck getting stuff out. I was like, good thing I have a backup camera because I didn't look because all my children were with me. So,
well, and you always realize like how great backup cams are, because you always hear like those stories of where like people used to like run over their kids and pets and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I can totally see how that happens, because I almost hit people walking all the time because kids are walking by my house to get to school.
Yeah.
And I'll look and they're not there, and then suddenly they just appear.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere.
Oh yeah.
So
I did have a funny story. So today I was talking to Nolan. He's my youngest, and I was telling him about the podcast, and we were just talking about things, and he was like, "Mom, did you guys do an episode on Slender Man?"
Oh.
And I said no, because I just listened to it on Morbid, and he was in the car for part of it, and so I was like, "No, we didn't." He's like, "Why not?" I said, "Because he's not from Utah, and we're doing like Utah-based stories." And he's like, "Well, is Morbid from Utah?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Well, then why do you even listen to them?" I said, "Because I like them." And he's like, "Are they funny?" And I said, "Yeah, sometimes." And then he goes, "Why did they say keep it weird?" And I said, "Because that's their tagline, like at the end of their episodes." And he's like, "Well, what's your tagline?" And I was like, "We're still working on it," but I told him like what we were thinking about, and he goes, "Oh, that's weird."
Keep it weird.
And I was like, "Okay, well, thanks, bud. Thanks for the input. I'll take whatever it's worth." But
All right,
He
so
thinks-
maybe when we do our tagline, you guys will have to tell us if it's weird.
Yeah. he
We're still
thinks it's
trying to come
weird.
up with stuff.
But he's 5 and he's weird, so don't take anything he says too seriously.
Yeah, my kids were all asking if they could listen to the podcast, and I was like, not yet.
Yeah.
Maybe someday, but not yet.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's hard. All right, well, are you ready for this?
oh, I am so ready for this episode.
I've been excited. So today we're going to do the Mark hacking story, which is a pretty big Utah case. And I remember it happening because it was in the early 2000s, so I was a full-fledged adult. And I remember it, but, you know, when you're watching it on the news, you don't know all the ins and outs of, like, the investigation.
Yeah.
And so I think this is, like, kind of exciting.
Yeah, I'm so excited for this one. And you even kind of, like even the more recent things that we've done, I remember covering that or hearing coverage about them,
Uh-huh.
but you really like forget all the little details. So
Yeah.
it's so fun to go back and listen to
Yeah.
all of the stuff that really happened.
Yeah, it really is. So I'm just pretty excited to do, you know, something big from our state that a lot of people I think will remember, but they
Yeah.
probably don't know all of it. So,
Well, and our adult brains are a little bit more developed, I'd say, than the early 2000s,
yeah, just a little bit.
you know? So I think it'll
Maybe.
be good. I'm super excited for this one.
A little bit here or there. Okay, well, I'm just going to jump right in. So we're going to start with Lori. So Lori K. Soares was born December 31st, 1976. And she was adopted. She was the adopted daughter of Thelma and Eraldo Soares. Now, Lori's parents met on an LDS mission in Rio de Janeiro. And so that's, I believe, where Lori was adopted from, because they lived in Brazil
Oh.
for a while. So I
Okay.
think that's where she was from, but they didn't really like say too much. So her parents later divorced, and in 1987, Thelma moved with Lori and her brother Paul to Orem, Utah. So Paul was 7 years older when he was 7 years old when he met Lori for the first time. And he said that she was a beautiful and loving baby who grew into a woman of class and style. Lori was really, really pretty, and she had like this really thick, curly hair, but like the pretty curls that are like not frizzy,
Yeah,
because I have naturally curly hair, but it is a hot mess.
we both do. And it's like,
it's not.
curls are not easy to take care of.
No,
people.
and hers are like so pretty and like shiny, and it was just really, really pretty. And
Yeah.
there's like a few things I watched with her mom, and her mom just always talked about how much she loved Lori's hair. And it was like kind of cute. I was like, no. So Lori attended Orem High School and then later went on to attend the University of Utah. She attended the David Eccles School of Business. She received the University of Utah President's Award for Outstanding Scholastic Achievement and was named the George S. Eccles Intern in Business Policy for her internship through the university's Hinckley Institute of Politics.
That's a mouthful.
That's a lot of words. And she was also selected for membership in the Beta Gamma Sigma, which was the honor society for the collegiate schools of business. She ended up graduating cum laude in December 1999 with a bachelor's degree in management. So, first off, I Googled how to say cum laude because I had no idea. And I wanted to make sure I didn't sound like a big giant dum-dum, so I did Google that. And second, she was super smart.
Yeah, very
And,
smart.
Like she seems like she was a very like organized, well put together, like I don't know, maybe kind of little type A personality, not in a bad way though, but just like very, she knew what she wanted, she knew what she was, was gonna do, and she just like kind of followed through. She seemed like a pretty one of those like children that you're always proud of, and like this is my daughter, look at what she's doing, and
Like who we strive to be as
Right.
women.
Right. So, now we're going to move on to Mark. So Mark Douglas Hacking was born April 24th, 1976. He is the fifth of 7 children born to Douglas and Janet Hacking. The 7 children were Lance, Scott, Tiffany, Sarah, then Mark, then Chad and Julie. So, by all accounts, Mark was a goofy, happy kid. He had curly red hair and freckles. friends and family said he had a huge personality. He loved to make people laugh. Once as a young boy, he was giving a talk at church, and he needed like a step stool in order to reach the microphone. And when he got done, he forgot he was standing on something, and he like went to walk and just like face planted off of the stool.
Aww.
And everyone, like, the whole church was, I mean, it's quiet in there anyway, but like was like, oh no. And he just like popped his head up with like a big grin on his face, like, I'm good.
That sounds like something Nolan would do, actually, like, because he falls all the time.
Oh,
and then he just pops
yeah.
up and it's like, I'm okay. I'm
Yeah.
okay.
100%. They also said he would do like funny things, like he'd wear his older brother's shoes to go play soccer, and then when he would kick the ball, the shoe would like fly off, and everybody would laugh. And once on a scouting trip, he had rolled over in the middle of the night. I'm guessing they were sleeping around the fire, and when he woke up in the morning, he had soot all over his face. And Brandon Wood, who grew up with Mark, and actually as of 2005, their families still lived across the street from each other. They attended the same school, church, scouts. They played sports together. And he said that, we couldn't figure it out. Weird, goofy stuff always just happened to him. And so it seemed like Mark was just one of those just kind of maybe goofy.
Like an entertainer.
Yeah, like class clown, like
Yeah.
kind of person that everyone like really liked. And it said when Mark was interviewed for the high school yearbook as a junior and he was asked why he chose soccer over other sports, he replied with, this is so Utah, because it's bad A.
Which is badass for those of you not from Utah.
Yeah. And if you say that, like, you're super, like, you're definitely one of the cool kids,
Oh,
bad
yeah.
A.
Yeah,
So bad
I've
A.
already taught my kids BA. We've shortened it to
Yeah.
BA now at our house. So if you're BA, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's totally a Utah thing. He barely missed getting his Eagle Scout, even though he had done a lot of the required things, including painting the bleachers at his high school, which was Orem High School. And it's also where he met Lori.
Okay.
So they were high school sweethearts. They dated on and off all through high school and thereafter. After graduating, Mark served an LDS mission to Winnipeg, Canada. And Mark's fellow missionaries said he was outgoing, well-liked, received lots of mail, talked about Lori and going to medical school. And one of his mission companions, Scott Simpson, recalled Mark as, I quote, just a funny, enjoyable, jovial guy to be around. Always upbeat and in a good mood. I had a great time working with him. And once returned, had a great time working with him. So, I mean, everyone just seemed to like have these good things to say about him, that he was just like happy, upbeat, like fun to be around, good energy. And so once he returned home, he and Lori continued dating. And then on August 7th, 1999, they got married in the Bountiful Temple. So if anyone doesn't know, that's a pretty common thing here in Utah. Couples get married in the temple, and I don't know the ins and outs of it, but it's another level of like commitment.
Yeah, so basically when you get married in the temple and like sealed in the temple, it's for time and all eternity. So
Yeah.
it's not till death do you part. They believe that it's after this life.
Mm-hmm.
Then if you both live your life to the fullest according to what God wants you to do, then you're together forever.
Yeah, forever and ever.
So you better like that person a whole lot.
Yeah, 'cause when
when
you
you
die,
say I do.
When you die, they're still going to be there. So according to everybody, the couple had a loving, happy marriage. Lori was, like I said, very organized, and they said she could be kind of feisty, but she loved Mark a ton.
Well,
Mark,
if she was from Brazil, she's got to be a little feisty, right?
right? Yeah. So Mark worked as a psychiatric technician while Lori worked for Wells Fargo's as a stockbroker's assistant. Because at this point, she graduated, December 1999, so just a few months after they got married. Mark was still in college, and so he had, he was still working on his degree, and she was a stockbroker's assistant. So maybe they had some good investments. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do any of that, so I really wish I was good with that stuff, because I suck at financy things. So in the early summer months of 2004, Lori and Mark had announced that Lori was 5 weeks pregnant. And Lori had given her 2 weeks at work because Mark had been accepted to the North Carolina Chapel Hill Medical School, and they would be relocating for the start of the fall semester. So up to this point, everything seems like pretty kosher. Like they're just living the normal, kind of dream. Like
happy family,
met
getting
in
ready
high
to start their
school.
family.
Yeah, met in high school. Like
Gonna
he
be
went
a
on
doctor.
his mission. They got married. She's got this job. Now he's going to medical school. She's pregnant. Like everything just looks kind of perfect.
Yeah.
From the outside looking in, looks pretty perfect. So around 10 a.m. on July 19th, 2004, Mark Hacking calls 911 to report that Lori had gone running at Memory Grove earlier in the morning and had never showed up to work. Anyone that's not from Utah, Memory Grove is a park on the north end of Salt Lake, kind of by the Capitol building, and it's really, really pretty. And it's really open and big, but there's lots of like shrubs and trees, and like you're on the side of the mountain, and there's like trails where you can run up, and
there's like a little stream that goes through it. That's where Mario proposed to me, actually.
Oh, that's cute. That's where I had my engagements.
Yeah.
When I got married many, many moons ago. Actually, it would have been around maybe just a little bit before this, because I got married in 2004. So.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was a little bit before this. Anyway, Memory Grove's really super pretty. So he reports that she's gone running and she never showed up to work. At 10:46 a.m., Mark calls 911 again to report that he's found Lori's car parked at the entrance to Memory Grove. And when you first get up to Memory Grove, you're like in a residential area, and then like the houses just kind of stop and you're at the gate to like Memory Grove. So it's kind of like that part of Salt Lake is a really has like a unique look to it. It's really cool. But so she was parked right outside those gates into Memory Grove. An officer stated that normally with an adult, they wait at least 24 hours before they do any like missing persons reports. But because her car had been found, they did send an officer out to see what was going on. So the responding officer was Carol Mays, which is a man. So just because Carol's typically a girl's name.
Yeah.
The responding officer, Carol Mays, said after talking to Mark, they set up a search, and he also called the homicide division to come and help with the search. So as they searched, Mark told officers that he had seen a group of homeless people camping on the side of a trail that maybe they had some like information about seeing Lori, or where she, if maybe she was with them. So they went and they questioned him, but nothing ever came of that. So along with the actual possibility that Lori had been abducted, they also began to look into whether or not Mark or Lori had boyfriends or girlfriends. Because, how many times is that the case where
the motive?
Someone's having an affair and
they just run off or whatever.
Or they decide to like harm the other person or get whatever. So they look into that. While they're doing that, homicide investigators, Detective Kelly Kent and Detective Taylor West, ask Mark if they can go to his apartment and get pictures of Lori so they can help in the search. And he agrees, and they also use this as a way to just get a glimpse inside the Hacking's life, see what kind of people they are, see just kind of if it gives them like any clue about Lori and what might have happened. So they get to his apartment, and as they enter, the living room is full of boxes, like packed boxes, half-packed boxes, like they're obviously like getting ready to move. And as they're looking around, Detective Kent notices that on a side table is Lori's purse and wallet. So in her mind, she's like, it's a little bit weird. Like, she drove her car down to Memory Grove. It's weird that she wouldn't take her purse or wallet with her. She has like no identification, nothing.
How far? Where did they live?
I don't know exactly, but they lived somewhere close to Memory
That's what
Grove.
I thought was
Yeah.
it was close. So
Yeah.
I remember this happening, and I was like, I don't think it's weird because like I wouldn't take my purse to go running. I mean, I
Yeah.
know that she drove there, but
Yeah.
at the same time, if it's super close, I probably wouldn't grab my purse.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a few things that like I think Detective Kent did a really good job, but she's also like, she's not judgy, but she's definitely like questioning like every little thing, which I think is good to do. Like as
Yeah.
a detective, you're just like, I don't know about this. I don't know
Yeah.
about that. So she sees that, and then she also sees a big vase of flowers. And it's funny because there's a documentary on Oxygen that's from like right after this had all happened. So it's from like the early 2000s. But there's an episode on it. And she talks about when she saw the flowers, that there's only two kinds of flowers that men give women. There's the honey, I was just thinking about you flowers, the ones that you pick up like in the grocery store, like on the way home. And then there's the, oh crap, I did something, you're mad at me, I'm really sorry flowers that are like super elaborate and like, big fancy flowers. And that's what these were. So it made her like wonder like, oh, what has he done? Like why is he giving her I'm sorry flowers?
Okay.
So anyway, so then as they continue through the apartment, they are going past the bathroom, and Detective Kent also notices that their bathroom is ridiculously clean and smells super strong like bleach.
Ooh, not a good sign.
No, never a good sign, ever. And so they get into the bedroom, and so they get into the bedroom, and then Detective Kent once again notices that Lori's wedding ring is still on the dresser, which she thought was weird because, she's like, women don't go anywhere without their ring. But I know a lot of women that do.
Okay, I am one of these, so I cannot sleep with my wedding ring.
I don't sleep with mine on either.
Literally, as soon as I get home, I have a little dish that it goes in, and I take it off. Like some women never take their ring off. They shower with it. They do everything. I cannot do that. I am not one of those people.
I do take mine off, but I don't take it off till I go to bed, but I take it off to shower. But I usually do put it on first thing in the morning, but it's not uncommon. I know a lot of people who don't ever wear their wedding ring. I know, I have, I worked in a lab for a long time, so a lot of my coworkers, had their fancy wedding ring that just stayed at home for, special occasions, and they would wear, a silicone band or something just super simple.
Yeah.
So to me it's not super out of the
weird.
question. But
maybe. Yeah.
So also while they're in the bedroom, Detective Kent notices that the sheets on the bed still have the creases in them, right after you buy them, that they've just been opened and thrown on the bed. They haven't been washed, they haven't been slept in, they're brand new sheets. And then she also notices that the mattress and the box springs are different. And so she talks about how, nobody ever buys a mattress without matching box springs, which, yes, but also people especially when you're young and poor, you buy a mattress from one place and then you get box springs from another place or for free.
Yeah.
So
so I don't feel like that's super uncommon either.
No, I don't either. But
this detective has spidey sense, I think.
She does.
Pinpointing
or maybe she just
everything,
never
and she's
grew up poor.
Maybe. Yeah, we both grew up kind of poor, so
I'm sometimes we didn't even have a box spring, so
at one point I had a mattress on the floor, so
I did for lots of years, even as a married person. Eventually we were okay, I guess we'll get a bed frame. So so all of this stuff is very circumstantial, but she's just kind of noting, all these little things that she's seeing. So they get what they need and they leave. And they head back to Memory Grove, where at this point now, a command center's been set up. The search is growing. Volunteers are showing up. Lori's coworkers are showing up. It's becoming a pretty big search. And one of the officers that was in charge of the search was also part of the search for Elizabeth Smart. And he talked about how where she was being kept was 3 miles up from her house in the mountains, and they had searched up there, but they just didn't go far enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said with this one, he was going to make sure he went far enough. He said it's like something that, you know, he will like always regret and hold some like guilt for, because
sad.
he's like, we just didn't go far enough, and she was right there.
Like so close.
Yeah. So he's like, you know, with this, I was gonna make sure that we went far enough. So like the search was just getting like huge. So once they get back to Memory Grove, Homicide kind of sees that Patrol and everyone else is really taken control of like the scene and the search, and like a lot of stuff's going on. So they decide that this is a good time to take Mark in for questioning. They just want to get some background information. They want to get like more of an idea on what might have happened to Lori. Just kind of like talk to him and see if they can just, you know, find out any enemies, any like whatever. And they just want to, you know, really like start digging into what has happened to her. So when they're in the interrogation room, Mark tells Detective Kent and Wes that he recently graduated from the U. He was set to go to medical school that fall. And Detective Kent is already like, obviously, like I said before, like on super high alert with Mark. And so she, for whatever reason, decides to ask him what he's going to specialize in when he goes to medical school. And he tells her that he's specializing in oncology. And so she's like, oh, like, you know, this is a really stupid question, but could you spell that for me? And he couldn't. He like tried to, but he couldn't. And so she was like,
Ding, ding, ding. Another red flag.
Okay.
Like you're going to med school and you can't spell oncology.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, anyone that has like a science background at all knows how to spell oncology. And I mean, if you know how to speak English, you should be able to sound it out pretty good.
On call.
I mean, to me seems pretty simple, but yeah, so he couldn't spell it. So she was like, okay, all right, Mr. Hacking. And also like during the questioning while they're in there, he's like crying and he's just like, you know, being so just dramatic. But she said that she called it dry crying. So she's like, he's crying and he's crying, but there's like no snot, no mucus, no tears. And she's like, when people cry, like there's snot.
Oh yeah.
Like there's, you know, and like I said, like she's super just, she just is seeing things. And so she's like, okay. Like,
this detective's kind of badass, actually.
Yeah, she's, and if you watch the documentary.
Or BA.
Yeah, she's very, or bad A. She's very bad A. If you watch the documentary, she's just funny. Like, me and Cody were watching it, and we just like kept laughing when she would say things because we were like, "Oh man, she's got it in for, you know, she's just a good detective.
Yeah,
good. She pays real good attention." So they get done interrogating him, and they head back down to Memory Grove. And by this time, the search is like enormous. Patrol has set up search grids. They're like checking into sex offenders in the area. They have helicopter searches. They have bike units. And like tons of media has showed up at this point because it's just like blown up. And mind you, this is just hours after she's been reported missing. And so there's, according to retired public information officer Dwayne Baird, Mark was out there and he was talking to anyone and everyone that would listen. Just like hamming it up for the media. So I want to play you guys a little clip from that day.
Can I just make one plea? Everybody, anybody who can come, please come tomorrow morning. I don't think they're going to let the volunteers up there tonight, but we're going to start at 6:30 tomorrow morning, and anybody who can possibly, if you can make it, please come. That's all.
He was really
Yeah, it's so over the top.
Yeah.
Okay, so as they're doing the search, Detective Kent notices that Mark's truck now is parked right there on the side of the road. So she goes and asks him if they can search his car. And he's super compliant with everything. So he's like, yeah, sure. So she goes over there and they start looking through the car, and on the front seat is a phone book. Which nowadays we don't generally see phone books in cars. But apparently in 2004, people still carried phone books with them. So he had a phone book. And underneath the phone book, Detective Kent sees a receipt. So she picks it up and she's looking at it, and it's a receipt for a new mattress that was bought July 19th after he had called 911 to report Lori missing. So she, at that point, like, takes it and she starts, like, waving it in the air at her partner, and she's like, look what I found. And while they're searching, Mark is just chilling right there by, like, the car. So he's just right there, and she's waving it in the air, and she's like, look what I found, like, and just telling her partner, like, what it is. And as she's telling her partner, she says she can see Mark, and his face goes from, like, this sad, grieving, like, poor husband to this just, like, dead glare, and he's looking right at her, and he says, what, you think I hurt her? And Detective Kent replies with, no, I know you killed her, and I'm gonna fucking prove it.
Wow.
So
I really like this
Yeah.
Detective Kent.
At this point, she has had enough of his shit. And
Detective Kent, if you ever hear this,
yeah,
I would love to meet you.
right? Yeah, she is so batty. So now with all this circumstantial evidence, the purse, the wallet, the flowers, the sheets, now the mattress receipt, and Lori's car. So when they found Lori's car, the seat had been moved way back, and she was like 5'4", and the seat was placed for someone much taller. So that was also another little thing that they had.
I remember that, and I remember that being like a big deal.
Yeah.
And that's what they said was one of the big things that like clued them in, which obviously they always look at the spouse first,
Right.
but that like clued them in that he wasn't being truthful and
Yeah.
that somebody else had driven her car there, because there's no way
Yeah.
she could have reached the pedals.
Yeah. Well, and if you're 5'4", like, why would you move anything? You know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't drive like that.
No.
It's like, for me, because I am not a little person, in my car, my steering wheel is lifted up a little bit. And if Cody ever takes it, I get back in there and my stupid damn thighs can't under my steering wheel, because he always moves it down, even if he's just driving it for a second. And I'm always like, why? Why do you move my steering wheel?
That's funny. I get mad at Mario too. I'm like, don't touch my mirrors. Like, this is my car. You have your truck. I don't care if you drive it once in a while, but don't adjust all my crap.
Well, and sometimes I get, this is total sidetrack, but sometimes I get in and it takes a while before I realize that the steering wheel's down. I just feel like fat for the day. Like, like, you know, when you feel bloated, your pants are tight, my thighs are rubbing against the steering wheel. It's like a whole thing before I'm like, oh, it's not me. The steering wheel's been moved. So, anywho, at this point, things are not looking good for old Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. He, after they find this, he quickly leaves.
Well, I would too. I would peace out pretty fast.
Right? And the whole, like, what, you think I heard her, reminds me of, like, little kids when you, like, walk in their room and they're like, nothing. And you're like, I didn't say anything. Like,
I didn't do it.
yeah.
You didn't do what?
Yeah. Like, no one said anything about that yet. So,
Right.
So after that, they go to his apartment to see if he's there, and they ask him if he will sign a consent to search form, which allows them to search the apartment without a search warrant, but I think it still is less invasive than a full search warrant. But
Okay.
it gives them, like, an opportunity to, like, actually kind of search the apartment, and see if there's, like, anything in there that they can be like, okay, now we really need a full search warrant. Because, like I said, everything is very circumstantial. Like, it looks good all together, but you can't, like, it doesn't mean you're a killer.
Right.
So he signs. He's like, sure.
He's an idiot.
He really is.
Always ask for a lawyer and never sign anything
Well,
if you're
and
in
just-
this situation.
Just because you seem cooperative, like, if you got shit in your house, Like, that's not going to help you. Like,
No.
like, it's just not going to. So, he signs the form, and in the apartment, they're able to get like a closer look at the mattress, and they, decide that yes, it is in fact brand new. And, they are looking through like the nightstand. They find a hunting knife in Mark's nightstand that has blood and a bloody fingerprint on it. And he says it's just used for hunting. And honestly, I never found anything else that said if they tested it, if her blood was on it.
Really?
Yeah. But they used that to obtain the search warrant, because now they had like some sort of a weapon. They had blood. And so that was kind of what they used to obtain their search warrant. So once the apartment was secured, while they were waiting for the search warrant to get signed, Detective Kent goes outside. She's kind of walking around, and she notices a dumpster out back. So she walks up there. The dumpster's empty, except for 2 pillows, the packaging for the sheets, and the plastic packaging that goes like around a new mattress. So at that point, she finds Mark, and she asks him when the dumpsters get emptied. And Mark replies with, well, this grid gets emptied on Monday mornings. And she, like, in the show, she was like, it's a super strange thing to say. Like, people don't say, well, my grid gets emptied. Like, you're just like, oh,
right.
They come and get the garbage on Mondays. But for some reason, he knew which grid got emptied on which days. So that, like, made her think, like, she immediately essentially was like, he put her in the dumpster. He threw her in the dumpster, and she tells, there's Sergeant Ron Miller, who is at the apartments, and she tells him her suspicions, and that she thinks that he's put her in the dumpster, and now Lori's in the dump. And she's like, you need to, like, shut down the landfill. And he's like, yeah, no. Like, first off, you're crazy. He didn't do that. Second, like, that's a lot of money. Like, it's a huge undertaking to just shut down the landfill for, like, your wild idea.
Like a suspicion.
Yeah. So they were like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. So while the search warrant and everything's being conducted, Sergeant Ron Miller goes for a smoke break, and he drives down the street a little bit, and he parks at an LDS church that's just down the street. And he gets out, and he's just walking around, and he sees a dumpster that's full, and there's a mattress sticking out of it. So he goes over there and looks at it, and he notices that the pillow top has been cut off. So he calls Detective Kent. He's like, what did those box springs look like up in their bedroom? And she tells him that, which I think is so funny, she tells him it was taupe with some flowers. And he's like, what the hell is taupe? She's like,
use
beige.
man language, please.
Yeah, she's all beige. All men know what beige is. It's so funny the way she talks. But he's like, oh shit. This mattress here in this dumpster
It's
matches.
beige. Oh, no.
It's beige. It's taupe with flowers on it, just like the box spring. So he's like, shit, you're right. And that's when he makes a determination to shut down the landfill. So...
Well, imagine that. It was his idea suddenly, and it works. Typical man in charge.
He had to wait for, for some, like, legit. She's a tiny lady brain. So as the evening kind of goes on, and they're still conducting search warrants, and, like, the search at Memory Grove is going on, Detective Kent gets a call from the watch commander that's on duty that night. And it's like, you're dealing with Mark hacking, right? And she's like, why? And she's like, well, Mark is running around naked at a nearby hotel. What? And so they send officers down there, and the lieutenant that's on duty that night shows up and immediately takes note that, like, normally when people are having, like, a psychiatric, like, thing going on, like a mental breakdown, they're going to run around outside naked, like, they're just going to be naked, like, everything. But he still had on, like, sandals, like, so his feet would be protected, and so they just thought that was, like, kind of weird.
Right.
Because, like, the rest of you's naked, like, why would you keep your shoes on? Like, you got to put your shoes back on after you take off all your clothes. Like, normally not, like, what's going to happen. And so they go to arrest him, and he tells them he wants to be taken to the hospital for a mental evaluation.
Okay.
So at this point, Detective Kent's like, yeah, he wants sanctuary. Like, he's a psychiatric technician. He knows exactly what to do and how to get himself, like, in there.
yeah.
And he also knows once he's in there, it'll be way harder for them to interview him, and they won't be able to serve search warrants for, like, any blood or DNA from him. So they're just like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. So, oh, sorry, I lost my place. So that kind of ends that night. So the next morning, the detectives get up, like the search is starting up again, and at that point they get a call from Chapel Hill Medical School. They have seen all the coverage on the news because at this point it's national news. Like everyone's kind of picked it up, and they see on there that like Mark is supposed to be connected to their school. And so they called to inform officers that no, he has not ever been enrolled, nor like did he apply or anything to their medical school.
Like he's just a big fat liar.
Yeah. So at this point now, I'm going to take you guys back a little bit to kind of the beginning of his life, and I'm going to talk about some of the stories I told you. So you remember that scouting trip that he went on, and he rolled over and he woke up with the soot on his face, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the second night, the other scout members built this like wooden tripod for him to sleep on, so he would be like raised above the ground. So they built it. He slept there all night, but somehow in the morning when he woke up, he still had soot all over his face. So to me, it's kind of like he needs attention
Yeah,
sort
for
of
sure.
a thing, you know? There was one time at Lake Powell, he burned his hand like so bad, and no one could figure out like how he really did it. And he burned it so bad that Lori had to like stay up all night and like tend to his burn. And so maybe he really did burn his hand, or maybe he just like needed some attention.
Well, he just did it on purpose.
Yeah.
For
Because
the
everyone was like, I don't really know like what he did. He also fell from a roof at one point and had like head and back injuries afterwards. And he said he suffered from seizures, but I don't know how much of it is like true and how much of it is like
he air quote fell from a roof.
like, or how much of it is just like maybe he did fall from a roof, but like didn't really have as much going on afterwards as he like milked, because it just, I don't know, kind of seems weird. But then, okay, let's get to his mission. So remember, he went on a mission to Winnipeg, Canada, right? And for those of you who aren't familiar with LDS missions, they're 2 years long for boys. So they usually go for 2 years. Well, Mark was sent home 11 months early for having a relationship. Now, not only, yeah, which is a huge deal, because when you're on your mission, you're like spreading the word of God. Like you're just God's right-hand man, right? Like there's no like, you just do churchy stuff. So not only did he have a relationship, he was having an intimate relationship with, I don't know who this girl was that was like shacking up with a missionary. Like to me, that's just super weird. But apparently he and several of his mission companions had girlfriends.
Okay, because I was just going to ask, where was the companion in all this?
Yeah.
So they give you a companion on an LDS mission that's like, you basically like live together,
Yeah.
you go knock on doors together, you do everything together.
Yeah.
And so they're like keep each other out of trouble a little
Yeah.
bit.
Well, and it seems like, and I don't know if this is like how it is everywhere, but it seemed like 4 missionaries lived together on this mission. I think like there's probably 2 sets of companions, and they all lived together. And it was said that like pretty much all of them had girlfriends, and one of them even got their girlfriend pregnant.
Oh no.
And there was one article I read that said there was like, it was kind of like a party house. It was like, there was like drinking and like stuff going on. And so
That's terrible.
right? So he and all the other 3 missionaries all got sent home early. Now, when he was sent home, he told everyone that his companion had done something wrong, and they sent them both home.
Oh, because of course it's never Mark's fault.
Right. So he and for those of you that don't know, with like some LDS families too, it's like very frowned upon for you to come home from your mission because nobody knows why. It's not like they tell people, and it's just always this like you have these like snarky people talk of the town like, oh my gosh,
Yeah, it's very hush hush, and then the rumors just fly.
Yeah, because they make it. I mean, in this, you would probably want to keep this hush hush because it's pretty serious. But yeah, I thought that was pretty like interesting. So, Mark was the district leader at one point, and Travis Webb was a missionary that was like under Mark or however. I don't know how the hierarchy works with that, but he was in the mission field where Mark was the leader of. And he said that although Mark and Lori had been dating for years at this point, he'd never ever heard of him speak of anyone back home. No girls, no girlfriends, like nothing. So I don't know. I don't know. You have like one companion that's like, he was great and he was amazing. And then you have another person that knew him that was like, yeah, I don't know.
Because I think when you have a personality like him, you kind of are a chameleon, right?
For sure.
You just change your personality depending on who you're around to kind of fit in and be like the center of attention.
Yeah, for sure. So, going back to the companion, Scott Simpson, who had said like what a great person Mark was and how much he loved like working with him, he had said after all of this had kind of transpired, he said, I am of the opinion that all the speculation that we found this and we found this, I feel Lori was abducted by someone. I don't think that's something Mark would do. And he wasn't the only one at that time that was thinking that same thing. I mean, Lori's family thought the same thing. Mark's dad. I mean, because even if he's a weirdo or whatever, like the last thing you're thinking is that he murdered his wife.
Yeah, well, and he put on a good front that they had this great marriage.
For
and
sure.
She was pregnant and he was going to med school and they were just living the dream.
Yeah. So I'm going to play another clip for you guys of Mark's dad at out at Memory Grove when they were searching.
Doug Hacking now feels certain that his daughter-in-law was abducted.
The only options are that she was abducted or she ran away. And the option that she ran away is nobody believes that.
So that was Mark's dad. Like I said, like nobody believed that, he had anything to do with it. They just really assumed that she had been abducted, which happens a lot.
Yeah.
Everywhere, but I feel like here too, because we have so many like running trails.
Yeah.
There's always women getting like snatched or attacked while they're out running. That's why you stay overweight like me, because there's no way first of all, they're not going to be out there running. Second of all, if someone like knocks me out and they try to drag my dead weight ass somewhere, they're going to need like a friend and a friend's friend to like help them get my body somewhere.
We really need to work on her self-esteem because she is amazingly beautiful and she needs to stop that.
But Lori was like a little tiny person. You could just knock her out and like, she like weighs less than one of my dogs I used to have. So
she was little tiny.
Yeah, she was a little person. So Mark's dad, Douglas Hacking, also told police that he didn't know of any marital problems, but he also said that if there were any, he doubted Mark would tell him. So Janet Hacking is Mark's mom. She also said that she and her husband had always been kind of worried about the way Mark went about like his feelings and his emotions, and that he held them in. She said he was very outgoing with other people, but with his own feelings, he was very inward. She said, this is a quote from her, "It seemed easy for him to establish a pattern of not explaining himself or revealing where he was." So it was a little interesting, but hindsight's always 20/20 as like a parent,
Right.
So, Lori's former college roommates, Gina Spackman and Heidi Gregory, also had a few things to say about Mark and their marriage. Gina said back in 2000, while her and Lori were running together, that Lori had told her she had found out that Mark wasn't enrolled in the current semester, like he said he was. Lori reasoned that he was probably stressed at work and felt bad about dropping his classes. But she did state that he had lied to her and she wasn't sure it was the only time. Yeah. And then Heidi, she said that the mere fact that Lori loved Mark made her believe the marriage was good. She said Lori would call you out on things if she felt it wasn't right. And so she just assumed that, like, their marriage was good because Lori wasn't the type to, like, you know, be submissive or, like, be pushed around. But she also said that she always felt very uncomfortable around Mark. She said he was egotistical and that because he was a man and she was a woman, he always made her feel less. Like,
Which
lesser.
I'm sure we all know men like that just
Yeah.
have that persona or vibe.
Well, and I, just from, like, looking at him and, like, seeing some of his mannerisms, I think he only felt like he could be like that with certain people, too.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think he was like that with Lori. I just don't see that. But, you know, maybe this friend was a little bit more, like, soft-spoken or, you know, just whatever. It seems like he, like you said, is a chameleon when it comes to, like, people in general. So at this point, police are now pretty sure that Mark had something to do with the disappearance of Lori. And detectives go back to the hospital to question Mark again to see if they can just get, like, anything out of him. And they get up to the hospital, and he is just chilling in bed, watching cartoons and eating pizza, like he's 5. And they said, you know, like, his wife is still missing, like, nobody knows where she is, and he's just up there, like, living the dream. And they ask him again, like, what happened to Lori, and he just tells them, she went jogging and she never returned. And then he says he's just so stressed and he's going to kill himself. Okay, like, so mind you, he's a psychiatric technician, and I think at this point he's still technically had a job, because I think I read somewhere that he resigned, like, on the 24th of July.
Okay.
So I think at this point he still, like, has a job, but he knows just, like, what to do and what to say to, like, keep him in there.
Oh, yeah.
And so here's a little bit about what I found about him, like, with his job. So 2 former patients of his at the psych hospital said that he used to run unauthorized therapy sessions. And the University of Utah came out and said that he didn't run therapy sessions, he ran activities. But the former patients recalled Mark relishing a role as a therapist, asking them questions and recording their behavior. He would act as a person of authority and reward patients with cigarette breaks. Officials at the hospital also said that he wore a name tag that said Franz, and they said it wasn't like, officially, you know, it wasn't like a hospital badge. It was one that, like, he made.
To say Franz?
Yeah,
Like,
because
please call me Franz.
because he, at this point, shaved his head, and he would pretend he was Franz from the SNL skit Hans and Franz. The bodybuilders. I'm going to pump you up. Yeah. So, yeah, so he, and they said there was one other person that he worked with that, like, they would play up this, like, Hans and Franz whole get up. But,
Well, and just going back to him, like, pretending he's a counselor, that just goes into him wanting attention and
yeah, like,
acting more important than he actually is.
for sure. Yeah. Wanting to, like, be that, top dog kind of a thing. So at this point, the detectives roll their eyes so hard they almost fell out the back of their head. And they left and decided to go speak with Thelma, who is Lori's mom. So they get there and they inform her that Mark was not enrolled in medical school and that he actually never even graduated from the University of Utah. Thelma was floored, and she said, well, that can't be right because her and Lori had gone to his commencement. So the detectives were like, what? What do you, like, what? Like, what do you mean you
Like,
went?
what did they actually attend?
Like, could you please explain? And so she said the morning of his graduation, she went to Mark and Lori's apartment. Lori told her mom that Mark had been throwing up all night and she wasn't sure if he was going to make his graduation. And Thelma said she could hear him throwing up. And at this point, she's like, well, now I guess he probably took something to make himself throw up. And in the documentary I watched, it showed a garbage can with that Ipecac syrup in it.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if that was real or if that's what he used or if they just threw that in there, but he had obviously like taken something to make himself sick. So instead of being able to go up to the graduation, Lori and Thelma went to lunch. They came back to check on Mark, and at that point he was feeling much better. And she was like, well, will you put on your cap and gown? Like, let's go take some pictures because we didn't get to get any of you like during your graduation. So he puts on his...
they went to the commencement?
I don't think they went. So I think when she said that like they went to the commencement was that like she knows the day it happened. She went there to go to it, but he was throwing up.
So then they didn't go.
Yeah, so then they just went to lunch. They come home. He's feeling much better, and he puts on his cap and gown, and he takes pictures so that they have, like, record of the day.
This guy is, like, so sly, man.
Yeah. So at this point, I want to play you a clip from Lori's brother, Paul, and just kind of what he has to say when they start, like, finding out all of these lies from Mark.
And when we started hearing about the lies, he never went to college. And I thought, well, how could he not have? I remember calling him many times. And, I'm at school, I'm in the library studying. I remember getting the graduation announcement that he was graduating. He was going to med school, interviews, he'd been accepted. I couldn't comprehend it. How could that all be lies?
And this is...
So, yeah, so according to Paul, like, he even sent out announcements, like, graduation announcements. And I don't know where his family was, like, Mark's family for graduation. But I don't know. It's so weird to me.
I mean, for me, like, we've all told those little white lies, right?
Sure.
But to go to this depth and, like, have everyone in your life convinced that you are graduating and going to med school and sending out, like, graduation announcements.
Yeah.
Just the level that this guy sunk to make everybody believe this is insane.
It's really ballsy to me. Like,
yeah.
How... I just don't understand. And I was thinking about, like, okay, so you can fake going to college, right? Like, you don't get paid to go to college. Like, you just leave the house during your class time, whatever. Like, nobody really has to know. You can fake all of that. They had, I mean, like I said earlier, Lori had put in her 2 weeks. Like, they had gone to North Carolina. They had put in a deposit on an apartment. So, like, they were really going to move. And so he was going to, fake medical school, right?
Yeah, and, like, what's your end game?
Like, once you graduate med school, like, eventually you have to get a job. And at that point, you can't fake making doctor salary when you're a crazy person. Like, what? I just don't, I don't know. And, I mean, I'm sure when you're in the middle of all these lies, like, you just keep going, and you can't stop yourself because now you're so deep into it, and I don't know, but I was like, what was he going to do? Like, eventually you're going to be done with school.
Yeah,
Eventually.
and I think with, like, pathological liars, they either tell so many lies they forget what's a lie. Sometimes people actually start believing what they're telling people, and they just get in a routine, but they're not looking at the long game.
Mm-mm.
You know, they're just looking at what's going to get them attention and love and acceptance in the moment.
Yeah, well, and he probably thought too, like with medical school, like I have, a good another 8 years, 10, like depending on how long it takes you to, to finish your specialty or whatever. So he's like, I got a while before, like,
I'll figure it out.
I'll become a doctor in that time. So yeah, so it was super interesting to me. So on July 20th, 2004. At 11:30 a.m., Lori at this point has been missing for just a little over 25 hours. They get a call from a gas station clerk at a station near the Hackings apartment. His name was Eric Holloman, I believe is how you say it. And he says that he has video of Mark and Lori coming in just hours before she was reported missing.
Oh, okay.
So I also have a clip of that. I want to play for you guys so you can hear what he has to say.
I was working a Sunday night when Mark Hacking came in with his wife. This was between, I think, 9 and 10. Him and his wife came in and bought a soda.
before they were finished, he turned around and told me, "Don't tell my wife I smoke." Because he's been in the store in the past buying cigarettes, and he didn't want her to know.
Okay, so yeah, that was the gas station attendant. And if you see the video, I mean, there's not like a whole lot in the video that like makes you think anything except for that now you know that something has happened to her like shortly after that. But there's no like, neither one of them are smiling really either. Like there's, not a lot of contact, but in the video she's also wearing a pair of green scrub pants and like a tan fitted shirt. And that will kind of come up later. So later that day, Lance and Scott, Mark's brothers, come and talk to detectives during the search at Memory Grove, and they ask detectives if they really believe Mark had something to do with Lori's disappearance. Detectives say yes, and they present them with all the evidence. So once Mark's brothers hear all this evidence, they decide to help police, and they are going to go back to the hospital, and they're going to see if they can talk to Mark and get anything out of him, because just like when people wear wires, like he won't have to be read his rights or anything. They can just go up and ask him, and if he confesses, then perfect. Good for them.
Like really cool of his brothers too.
Yeah.
Like shout out to Mark's brothers and family.
Right? Because that would be super hard.
Yeah, that would be super hard.
Yeah.
And that just goes to show that they really loved Lori too, because they just want to do justice by her.
Well, and I feel like too, like for me, if someone close to me, my own children, like you can still love and support that person, but like you should do the right thing.
Yeah.
And the right thing is to like help find what happened.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen very often.
No.
Like usually you got your blood relatives back, and it's like,
which is unfortunate, because on the other side, like people have lost their loved one because of your loved one.
Yeah, so that's really cool.
Yeah, I thought so too. So they go back up to the hospital, and while talking with Mark, he confesses, and he says, "Lori's dead and I killed her." So at this time, the detectives bring both Lori and Mark's families into the hospital, and they tell them what Mark has told Lance and Scott. And at this point, Lori's mom just can't believe it. She's like, no, like that can't be, And Lori's brother, Paul, said he knew Mark had something to do with it, even without any of the evidence.
He's like, yeah, I knew he was a piece of shit from the beginning.
Well, and I think he really liked him, but I think once all of this started happening, like, as a mom, you're probably going to kind of block out some red flags, right? You're just going to be like,
sure.
That's my
and you want to
like
withhold hope
him.
that she's not dead and that she's just somewhere and you'll find her eventually.
But as Lori's brother, he's like looking at Mark and just probably analyzing everything he's doing, the way he's doing it, and is like,
this is not adding up.
Yeah. And Mark's poor family was so distraught that their son had done something, so like terrible to Lori, because they loved her.
Yeah.
And they just like we said, like they seem like a very nice, like loving family. So they were just like, they were so upset. He also told his brothers that he shot her in the head with a .22 rifle and got rid of her body in the dumpster. So there were some people who had just spent that previous weekend with them, and I believe July 19th was a Monday. So it was just like right before stuff happened. But they said that Lori did seem like really distant and upset during their time together. So during the search of the Hacking's apartment, detectives found a letter that was addressed to Mark from Lori. And the letter stated that she had found out that he was not enrolled in medical school, that he'd not graduated from the U, and that she could no longer be with him. They also removed a shirt of Mark's that said West Seattle Acid Party.
What?
And they said, according to some people, like apparently the years leading up to Lori's death, Mark had started drinking, smoking, and partying.
And doing some acid?
Yeah, apparently. At some West Seattle acid party. I don't know. But, for people of the LDS faith, like drinking and smoking are like really not good things. Like they just really don't condone that at all. So, when people find that out that are LDS, it's always like, oh, no. couldn't do that. So on the evening of July 18th, 2004 is when they believe, obviously, Lori confronted Mark. And instead of doing what, like, most people would do, which would be, you know, I don't know, run away, get in a huge fight, like, I don't know. He decides that he's going to wait until his wife falls asleep, and then he's going to shoot her in the head.
And his pregnant wife.
Yeah. And I really do think she was pregnant because he says she was pregnant too, like later on when they talk about it.
Well, I think they confirmed it, right?
No.
They never confirmed it?
No. So, detectives have began the search for Lori now in the Salt Lake City landfill. And the area that her body was dumped was 10 acres.
That is huge.
Yeah. And they said between July 19th and July 20th, the landfill received more than 4,000 tons of waste.
Ugh. I mean, just that whole sentence, like, you have to go look for this woman's body in the landfill. Like, her husband shot her and threw her away like literally a piece of garbage.
Yeah.
It's like so incredibly disturbing, and I mean, killing her was disrespectful enough, right? But then you have to throw her away like that.
Yeah.
It just seems like the worst possible thing.
Oh, yeah. And there's no thought process, like, you know, you kill her and then there's no like, oh my God, what did I do? It's like now you like, I don't know.
Well, and oftentimes it's like people try and bury them or do something.
Yeah.
This guy threw her in a dumpster.
Yeah.
And just think about that, because like he had to carry her body out of their apartment. And you know, he had to set her down on the ground, open that big heavy ass lid of the dumpster, and then somehow like throw her in there.
Yeah.
It's just terrible.
Yeah. Well, and I think of it too, like, I'm sure they got in a big fight, you know, when he read the letter. I'm sure there was like a fight, and he couldn't even, I don't know, it's so cowardly to me for him to like wait until she goes to sleep and then like sneak up behind her, and it's like he, you know, like he just is so, everything he does to me just seems like so cowardly.
Well, and for me, that's just like methodical. Like, he had to plan that out. He had to think about it. He had to sit there and wait until she was asleep and make sure she was asleep.
Yeah.
And literally go stand over her and pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Like, you have time to think about that. Yeah. That's not something that just happens out of anger.
Yeah.
You literally thought about like, that for so long.
Not that murder at any point is acceptable, but like in the middle of a fight, in my brain it just makes more sense like that you're fighting and like there's all this stuff going on and you pull out a gun and you shoot somebody.
Yeah, like a crime of passion in the moment.
Like, I'm sure have this big fight and then like sit and think about it and wait for them to go to sleep and like still carry out all of that stuff, to me just is a different level.
That's so sick.
Well, there was one article, and I couldn't find any other one, so I didn't put it in, but there was one article that said after he killed her, he, like, played video games.
Ew.
Right? Like,
ew.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do have another video. This is kind of a video clip centric episode, but I do have another video. This is from Wally Hendricks, who is the cadaver dog handler that worked on Lori's case.
We got a call from the Salt Lake City Homicide Division, and they asked us if we'd ever used our dogs in a landfill. You know, to a human, this would be a very difficult place to detect a specific odor. We kind of smell the landfill in its entirety. But if you understand the way that dogs' nose works and the physiology of a dog, to them it's nothing, it's easy. The area where they wanted to search had been sealed over with clay. It was no longer an active dumping site, and so we had to scrape off the layer of dirt. Now, a lot of people don't realize that garbage is compacted by 50%, and when you uncover it, it explodes back out to its normal size, so it doubled in enormity, it doubled in size.
We'd go down, Wally would run the cadaver dogs through, and then we hand search all of the trash. Nothing there. They sweep it away with an earth mover, and the process starts over.
So that whole process continued for over a month. And on October 1st, 2004, human remains were found. They found a jawbone with teeth still intact, and that's what the state medical examiner's office used to identify Lori through dental records.
Okay, so I'm just thinking because, like, decomposition, it seems like it wouldn't decompose that quickly to be just down to a jawbone. But I guess because it's in a landfill, it's in the middle of summer in Utah.
Yeah, well, and that was why they could never confirm that she was pregnant, was because at the time of Lori's disappearance, she weighed between like 110 and 115 pounds, and all they were able to recover was 15 pounds of her remains.
Aww.
So yeah, they didn't have it. I think it was mostly just bones. I think at that point it had just decayed so bad. There wasn't much left. And next to her remains, they also found a pair of green scrub pants and a fitted tan shirt.
Aww.
Yeah. So after Mark's arrest in August, another video from that same gas station came out. And I don't know why it took so long, so this kind of goes back a little bit. So October 1st is when Lori's body was found, but Mark was first arrested in August when they had suspicion of him like having something to do with it, and he was charged, I believe, for the first time on like August 9th. So I don't know why, like, at the beginning in July when they called and said we have this video, why they didn't have the other one. I don't know why it took like a month for them to get it, but there was another video of him going back to that gas station at 1 o'clock in the morning on July 19th. And it looks like in the video he's buying like an energy drink, and there's no sound in this video, but the one thing that is kind of interesting is the whole time he's up there like buying his drink, he's just constantly looking at his hands, like checking them, turning them like over. And so it just makes you wonder, like, is he looking for blood? Like,
yeah, like he had probably killed her at that point.
Yeah, I think at this point he had already done that part of it. And so it's just kind of eerie. Yeah, definitely kind of eerie. So on Thursday, September 23rd, 2004, Mark appears in court wearing a bulletproof vest where he waived his rights to a preliminary hearing. And at that time, he was scheduled to appear in court again on October 29th, 2004, where a trial date should be set. So Sergeant Rosie Rivera, she said that the vest was standard procedure for inmates involved in high-profile cases where they're also in protective custody at the maximum security area of the jail. Because I believe it was Mark's lawyer that had come out saying that he didn't know why he was wearing a vest and it wasn't a very common practice. But she said that it was. But, we don't have a ton of like high-profile cases here.
Yeah.
And he was also in protective custody at the jail because they put him in protective custody if they're either a danger to themselves or if other prisoners want to kill them. So I think he kind of had all of those going for him. So on October 29th, he appeared on the verge of tears as he nodded silently in agreement with his attorney, D. Gilbert Athay, I believe is how you say his last name, as he entered a plea of not guilty, and the trial was set for April 18th, 2005. Both families were pretty sad to hear Mark give a not guilty plea because they really didn't want to go to trial, and they were hoping that he would just plead guilty. Let's see. Mark's family, after he gave his plea, said that they were very sad that he had pled not guilty, but that they supported his decision nonetheless. So still, once again, they just seem like super nice, loving people.
Yeah.
They just really do. Mark's brothers, Lance and Scott, were most likely going to be called to testify. And this is what Scott had to say about that. He said, anytime they call a family member to testify against another family member, it's going to be painful. But my family is still committed to doing the right thing. So,
Again, this family is just amazing.
yeah. So, they knew it was going to be tough, but they really felt like it was the right thing to do, which is awesome because you don't get that. You don't get that very often with people. So just days before the trial, on April 15th, a pretrial conference was added to the court calendar, which was just super weird because it was just all of a sudden. Mark was facing 1 count of murder and 3 counts of obstruction of justice. So both attorneys had come out publicly stating that they were discussing a plea deal. And at this conference, Mark ended up pleading guilty of first-degree murder in exchange for the prosecutors dropping all other charges.
Okay.
So 3 days before his trial, they ended up not having to go to trial. Which
is good.
Yeah. So when Thelma Soares heard... So in this, when he pled guilty, he admitted that he intentionally shot Lori in the head. And Lori's poor mom said when she heard Mark admit that in court, it was like time stood still. So I think, she knows that he has something to do with it, but I think finally hearing him say that, yeah, I did this and I meant to do it,
Yeah.
just kind of broke her world. So it was really sad. On June 6th, 2005, Mark was sentenced to 6 years to life, which was the max sentence for his charge. The judge, Judge Denise Lindberg, handed down the only sentence she could under Utah law, stating that the parole board would have the final say in how long he stays in prison, but that she will recommend he be held for a very long time. So during sentencing, Mark stated that there was no excuse for his actions and that he would serve 1,000 lifetimes if it meant amending for his actions. He also said, and this is a quote from him, she said, "She didn't do nothing but love me unconditionally, even when I didn't deserve it. She was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, but I killed her, and I took the life of my unborn child and put them in the garbage, and they rotted out at the landfill. I am tormented every waking minute by what I did."
I hope so. I
Yeah.
hope that you're tormented forever.
Yeah, and it's
Every single
unfortunate.
day.
It's unfortunate, and I wish they could just take the fact that he says she was pregnant, because if they were able to prove that she was pregnant, he would have been charged with capital murder, and the death sentence would have been, on the table. But yeah, I just, the way he states it, I just threw them in the garbage and they rotted out in the landfill. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, you're sick.
Yeah. So the only silver lining, I guess, to this is that Mark Hacking is not eligible for parole until 2035.
Okay,
So at
good.
that point, he'll have been in prison for 30 years. And hopefully he doesn't, get granted parole, but who knows?
Yeah,
At
hopefully
that
never.
point, yeah. Who knows? But hopefully that judge is still around and she can go and say her piece. But this was a couple things I found interesting. So in 2006, within a year of him being in prison, he is asked to stop trying to sell autographs and other memorabilia. And there's an online seller who was advertising items that were signed by Mark. There was a tracing of a hand. There was prison visitors forms. There was canteen invoices. And in the state of Utah, it is illegal for criminals to profit from their crimes, but it's a civil charge. So he would be charged civilly. But
Well, and can we stop giving murderers this status?
yeah.
Because it's disgusting.
Yeah. And I mean, I do have like a morbid side of me where like murder memorabilia is pretty cool. Like I think like certain things I'm like, that's kind of cool. I would love to have that. But I don't think I could like actively buy something from someone who is in prison.
No.
You know?
It's disgusting.
Yeah. 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 And so he agreed. He agreed to stop trying to sell things. Like, oh, what are you going to do with the money anyway? Like, you're in prison
Commissary, man.
for 30 years. I don't know. And then there was also word in 2006 that Mark had gotten a big tattoo on his chest of some sort of like large equipment. Some people said it looked like a bulldozer. But the weird thing is like, that's the kind of stuff that was used to find
her.
Lori.
Oh, that's so gross.
And I don't know like if that's what it's, because there wasn't a lot about it. And obviously like prison officials were like, it's, you know, against the rules to get a tattoo, but you know, they all do it. And yeah, like I don't know what that's supposed to signify for him. Even if he did get that, like what you want that memory, like, is that like your way of like, I'm going to torture myself forever? Or is it like some weird, I don't know, you know, some like killers keep trophies from like their victims. Like even though this was his wife, like I just don't know. It was super weird.
That is really weird.
Yeah, and it's like a weird thing to get tattooed anyway, unless you're like a bulldozer driver. You know what I mean? Like it's just not like a common tattoo you see on people. So for that to be like what he gets, it just seemed very interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
And really gross. Like,
yeah.
Ew.
Yeah. So I just wanted to leave like this one last note for people, and I kind of want to know like what people's opinions are on this, but so no one knows if the high standards that Mark felt he needed to adhere to were placed on him by family or perceived by himself. But his father is a pediatrician, his mom is a nurse, his oldest brother has a master's in electrical engineering, his brother Scott is a cardiologist, and his younger brother works for the Department of Defense in D.C. And Thelma said that all of the hacking children were just like smart as can be. And she said that it wasn't that Mark didn't have the intellect. She just said he was sick.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds to me like he's not this like depraved murderer.
No.
It just sounds like he has some sort of mental illness, whether it's bipolar or he's obviously a compulsive liar. And then he just got so caught up in everything that he felt like that was, I guess, his only out was to kill her.
Yeah.
So that she didn't go tell everyone else. Well, I mean, obviously that wasn't a rational thought because now everyone in the entire world knows.
Yeah.
But
and eventually they were all going to find out because like we said earlier, like eventually you have to get a job as a doctor.
Yeah.
And you can't fake that.
I mean, unless something happens and you're like, oh, you know what? I tried it and this isn't for me.
I'd be so pissed.
But yeah, like then you have all the debt. I mean, obviously he wouldn't have debt because he wasn't actually going to school.
That was the thing was like maybe he was telling her he was getting grants for school.
Yeah.
But it's just so weird. But it seems like his family was just that they're just such nice people that I don't think it was something put on him by his family. But you know how some kids are like their older siblings are just good at everything and like, you know, and then you just feel like inadequate even though nobody has like said that you were inadequate. Yeah. And it kind of seems like maybe that's how he was. Like he just was more of like a goofy kid. He was funny. And then like as he was getting older, maybe, you know, he was a trier, but not quite a follow-througher.
Not a doer.
And once he realized that, you know, he just felt inadequate himself. And just that was the route that he took.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. Like he was trying to get out of their shadow, even though no one had really made him feel like he was in anyone's shadow. But in his mind, he perceived that he wasn't good enough. Yeah. The one thing I find interesting too is that it tells you everything that his brothers do, but nothing that his sisters do. That's so typical. Right? Like, it's just super weird. I'm like, I mean, and anyone that's not from Utah, like it is super common here to have stay-at-home moms. Like in the LDS religion especially, like that's, you know, they focus a lot on family and a lot of,
people. But nowadays it's harder to stay home. Like it's a lot harder to do that. But I just found it was interesting that, and maybe they just said that because he didn't judge himself against his sisters the way he did his brothers. You know, because their mom was super smart and she was a nurse, so it's not like doesn't seem like she was a stay-at-home mom, you know. But yeah, I thought it was interesting, and it was interesting to me just to hear all of the details kind of about like his life. Like even like during all of that, like I had no idea he'd been sent home from his mission for having sexual relationships. You know, that's a huge.
I remember he was sent home from his mission, but I didn't know why.
Still, yeah, like that's a huge thing. And so it was interesting to see. It was fun I really recommend if anybody can, like, go on, you can even download the Oxygen app, and it gives you like three free tokens or something, because these episodes are locked. And I don't know how much the subscription is or whatever, but I just wanted to watch this one that's called The Marriage Bed of Lies, I think the series was called A Lie to Die For, and it's the first episode in the series, and it was really good. And It's got the detectives in there, and so it's really good to watch. I liked it.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
This was a good case.
Yeah, it was
good
fun.
job.
Thanks.
I didn't know a lot of those little details, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember it happening, but I don't think I even remembered how much time he'd gotten in prison, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I paid as much attention or if I just didn't know, but
I think every time I just hope they're going to get longer, but
yeah.
I hope he never gets parole. I really do.
Oh, yeah.
And if 2035 comes, then there's like a petition that he doesn't get parole, we will be signing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wish I could see like what he's doing in prison, like, because I can just imagine that he is the biggest like weasel.
I'll bet that he's doing well in prison. That's what's really hard for me about this, is because with a personality like him, he's a freaking chameleon, man.
Maybe
I guarantee you, he's got his little prison buddies.
It's probably part
he's
of like
just
the
living the dream.
Aryan Brotherhood now, because you got to pick someone, and he already went in there with the bald head, so.
And he can change to whoever he wants to be.
Yeah.
He can make people perceive him just like them, and he's going to be the star.
It's so crazy. So crazy. Anyway. Hi. That was my boyfriend. Peeking in the background. So thanks everybody for listening. I hope that you're enjoying these. I hope we're getting better every time.
We're hoping our audio sounds better, because we are in a little soundproofed cave now.
Yeah.
So
we're really...
let us know. Give us some feedback.
And please follow us on Facebook and Instagram at
Sinners Among Saints Podcast.
And send us a Gmail at
sinnersamongsaintspodcast@gmail.com. And keep listening if you want in on the sin.
Bye.
Bye.